Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us on session 2 of our 2021 FBAA eSummit series here in South Australia and the Northern Territory. I'm Geoff O'Shaughnessy, your SANT State President, and I'll be your MC for today. So let's get started in today's session. There's a 1.5 point CPD hour allocated to both of the sessions that were held today and yesterday. And you'll receive an email with the CPD code and the survey following. So make sure you're tuned in throughout the webinar and ensure your attendance is marked to receive this email. I'd like to thank our sponsors for their support. It's been a tough few years and for everyone, and yet they've continued to work closely with FBAA to ensure we can still provide you with the education and assistance that you need during this time. Don't hesitate to get in contact with them, as they are always there to support you. All the sponsor contact details will be in the follow-up email after today's session. FBAA members, don't forget you receive 10% off your annual membership every time you refer a new member who joins the FBAA. You can also download the FBAA app to easily access information, updates and upcoming webinars to register for. You'll find the app in the Apple App Store for iPhones or in Google Play for Android. FBAA members, please remember to go to the members area of our website regularly, and you can log in to receive resources and tools to assist you. The website has just had a major revamp and there is a lot of new information to access there for your businesses. So please take the time to check it out. The broker support program is still available for anyone to access via the website. We've added the BID digital education and knowledge testing course information for those who wish to complete it, if you haven't already done so, and we'll continue to update this session with any measures to assist you. The agenda for today's session is available as a handout in the Zoom chat box for you if you wish. And to commence today's session, we're hearing about embracing digital teams, building capacity and setting your business up to scale with affordable staff. So I'd like to welcome Caitlin Stewart, who will take us through this segment. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Geoff. Good morning, everybody. My name is Caitlin Stewart and I'm from Affordable Staff. I'm the Financial Services Business Development Manager here. And I'd just like to first start off by wishing everybody who is here today, who is in lockdown, well wishes at the end of the I'm actually from Melbourne myself, so you definitely have my sympathy. And if you need any tips, just sing out. So here at Affordable Staff, we basically are here to help brokers get their lives back. So we provide services of virtual assistants. And I'm just going to talk through today some of the common themes that I'm hearing from brokers at the moment. Obviously, it's a really busy time in the industry for a lot of people, and a lot of people are really hit their capacity in what they can do. I'm seeing a lot of brokers working over 10 hours a day, sometimes 16, 7 days a week, on the weekends, spending time on the business, not on their personal life. I'm hearing a lot of stories about important admin and compliance being pushed back until the last minute, and it becomes quite stressful. Many brokers are very limited in being able to take on new clients or referral partners, or turning new clients away. As a result of that and being so busy, your existing clients can sometimes be underserviced. I've heard many stories recently of clients taking their businesses to other brokers because they simply didn't hear from that particular broker they worked with initially. A lot of the time, capacity is maxed out, stagnating growth in your book, stagnating growth in your business. And for many, obviously, it's a really interesting time economically as well too. So you may not think that you can actually afford to hire a permanent staff member. When thinking about capacity, it's important to understand what your actual personal capacity is and how sustainable that can be over time. So sit down and have a think about what time are you spending on each tasks, the $1 tasks, the things that don't make you any money. What could you easily delegate down to somebody else? It's also important to understand the tasks that you are doing. Are they actually making you any money, or are they taking time away from your return on investment activities? Just a quick shout out to the 10X group, a great group of guys, coaches that have a really fantastic and free tool that you can actually go on and calculate your sustainable capacity. So you plug in time spent, how many hours you'd like to work, how many clients you'd like to see, and that'll actually show you whether or not that's sustainable. If it's not sustainable, if you're looking to take on more clients, then it's probably a good idea to make a plan. So if you are considering bringing on staff members, but you're not entirely sure that you could afford it, perhaps you should consider using a virtual assistant. A virtual assistant can handle your low value, time consuming tasks so that you can focus on working on the business instead of just in the business. So we anticipate that you could save anywhere up to 10 to 20 hours per deal by delegating to a dedicated resource located in the Philippines. That will obviously allow you to focus more on your higher return on investment activities and also build your individual capacity in both your business and your personal life. So maybe you have happy kids, happy spouses, not spending so much time on the weekends or after hours in the business. The way we work is that we provide a full-time dedicated VA, so dedicated support for you, another team member, but they just sit in a different office. Just quickly, some of the top 10 tasks that we see many of our clients delegating to their virtual assistants are listed here. A lot of these do involve the loan processing process from start through to finish. So they can do packaging, chasing up client files, obviously apply online, CRM data entry, but also post-settlement and post-submission as well too. There's a lot of tasks that you can be delegating in order to free up some time back into your day. Just to round out the presentation, I do have a couple of quick case studies that really demonstrate the value of a digital team. So the first one here is broker Kim. She was averaging $1.5 million in settlements as a solo broker. She was actually turning away new clients due to no longer having any capacity left to take on new clients. So she hired a virtual assistant through Affordable Staff in November of 2020. Within 2 months, so very quickly after that, she had been able to increase her settled volumes to an average of $4 million. And that has continued and stay sustainable throughout the whole year. And she's also been able to take on many more new clients and has experienced some fantastic results from her referral partners as well too. And in the last couple of months, she's actually averaged about $6 million in settlements and is also now looking to bring on another team member on board as well too. Second case study here, broker Peter was averaging $3 million a month in settlements, and he was operating with one full-time in-house admin and also one new-to-industry broker. So recognizing that he needed some support for the team, especially with the new broker on board, he hired a virtual assistant through Affordable Staff in January of this year to support the team. Just a couple of weeks ago, checked in with him and the volumes have doubled to more than $8 million, and that has also been sustainable and continuing on throughout the year. And a really good win in this particular instance, not only for the increased settlement volumes, but also Peter has actually been able to drop down to 4 days a week. So only working 8 to 9 hours a day, 4 days a week, so that he can spend some more time with his family whilst the business is still growing. That's it for me today. Just a really quick taste of what we do, how we can help. So if you would like to have a chat with me, please get in touch. So the cost of a virtual assistant is less than half the price of what you would see for an admin here in Australia. If that's something that interests you or you'd like to find out more, please feel free to either book a meeting with me directly or simply just give me a call or send me an email. Thanks so much. Sorry, Joff, you're on mute. Apologies.
I'm sorry, I thought I'd unmuted. Yeah, thanks for that, Caitlin. A question I've got is, are all of your VAs full-time, or do you share VAs between different brokers so that they can have a part-time VA?
Sure. We do offer full-time only in terms of the actual staff members' capacity. We do, if a broker's working within the same office, for example, we can obviously arrange a resource share there, but it is probably best just to get in touch and have a chat with me about it because every circumstance is different and where we can help.
Great, thanks. Okay, so moving on, moving on to our panel session now, and we've got an expert panel today in Nicole from Bluestone, Kuba from Speedy Finance, Surinder from Trailbook Loans, and Branko from Prosper. And to run them through the series of questions that he's got organised for them is Mark Windram, our State Manager, to chair the panel. So welcome, Mark. You're muted, Mark.
Sorry, everyone. My internet just dropped out at the most unopportune time there, guys. So apologies about that one. Yes, anyway, we'll get on with it, hey? Now, so we do have our panel session today. I'm just bringing up my notes. So we do have Nicole from Bluestone, Cooper from Speedy, Surinder from Trailbook Loans, and Branko from Prosper. So we'll just get those guys to come up. So apologies again there, guys. All right, now for everyone that was in attendance yesterday, they are going to be the same questions that were asked during the panel session from yesterday, but I think we're going to have some pretty different answers that are going to come up. So please do follow the questions. They're going to be some pretty good answers, and there's going to be some pretty good knowledge that's going to be found out. So we're going to start at the top. What is about your product that sets you apart from other SME lenders? And we'll start with Nicole from Bluestone.
Morning. So there are a few things. I'll probably run through a couple of the main ones. First thing is our turnaround time. So we've got a 24-hour SLA at the moment. We've managed to maintain that from February. So yeah, really quick turnaround times, and we're doing fully assessed pre-approvals as well. We have a product on our Prime product. We don't charge any LMI and no risk fee as well. That's for full doc and low doc, so all of our Prime options. We're not credit scoring, so that's across all of our products as well. So everything's manually assessed, and we're not doing comprehensive credit reporting. We don't require genuine savings on any of our products. And we offer business loans at residential rates. So they're probably the main standouts.
Awesome. Thanks very much. Go over to you, Cooper.
Yeah, so at Speedy Finance, we're a little bit different than your typical SME lenders. So we're not doing kind of cash flow type lending. We're just doing short-term commercial loans against property, and that's interest only. So the three things we're looking for is just the loan purpose, making sense, strong exit strategy, and that you fit within LVR requirement for the property.
Thanks very much. Now, Branko, introducing Branko to the SA crew. G'day. Now, how long have you been on board with Prosper now, mate?
A couple of months now.
Excellent. How are you finding it?
Yeah, really good, really good. Yeah, great company to work for. Great industry to be a part of. It's yeah, it's exciting, and at this time of year, really, really busy, obviously. So.
Excellent. So what would you say your standout is, mate?
So we supply a line of credit and small business loans with no security up front for anything up to $150,000. We're very quick to make decisions. We can usually get loans approved within 24 hours. We're here to support small businesses, keep them moving.
Cool. Thanks very much, mate. Now we'll nick over to you, Surinder. Now we know that you're a little bit different to the lenders, but what sets you apart from those guys?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Morning, all. So we lend physically to mortgage brokers. So we'll lend against a trail book to a mortgage broker for any business purpose. We don't need property security. We don't take caveats or anything like that. It's just purely lent and leveraged against your loan book. In addition to that, we also lend to financial planners against their client registers and to real estate agents against their rent roll income. So any of that sort of ongoing annuity income type stream is what we will lend against.
Okay, John, that was going to be a question I was going to ask you a little bit later, actually. So just a follow on about the rent roll side of things. Are you still in that space a lot?
Yeah, absolutely. So still happy in the rent roll space. Got a little bit scared about this time last year, but we got over that. Didn't stop lending. Yeah, So, and again, in the rent roll space, we probably specialize under $500,000, because in the over $500,000 space, you've got ANZ, Westpac and Macquarie that will lend on rent rolls, whereas nobody will lend under 500,000.
Cool, thanks very much. Now, we'll go to the next one. So if I was a startup company that's trained for 6 months but has a high income for over 100 grand already, what would be the maximum amount I could borrow and what documents would require? It's Cooper.
Yeah, so with Speedy, the turnover doesn't really come into play. We're not looking at bank statements, turnover, things like that. Like I said, we're looking at the loan purpose and the exit. So as long as the amount of the money makes sense that they wanted to borrow, that they've exit to pay the amount back, there's not really a limit on the amount. And that'd be pretty much what we'd definitely be able to look at something like that.
Right, so you do a lot of your research into what the business is like and making sure that it's going to be of a suitable purpose for you guys.
Yeah, exactly right.
Thanks very much. Branko?
Yeah, so with Prosper, we could lend up to $25,000, and all we'd require is bank statements. They could choose a line of credit, or they could choose a small business loan, or even a combination of the both. The client would end up getting a dedicated account manager and ongoing access to funds through our customer loyalty and renewal program. So every time the client repeats, we'd notify you and pay commission.
Easy. Thanks, Branko. Now, Serena, just similar to the current scenario, but would you consider lending to a broker that's been in business for only 6 months?
Probably not. Reason being, we like to see 2 years history as a broker. And the biggest reason for that is, having been around for a very, very long time, it takes 2 years for a broker to actually be steady in their business and know what they're doing and how they're doing it. If we had an example of, say, a broker that's come out of being a mobile lender at ANZ for 10 years with great results, that was 6 months in looking to acquire a book, I'd consider that, but typically not.
Thanks very much. Now, Nicole, I'll just switch over to you and switch the question up a little bit, or completely. So you obviously do a lot of resi stuff as well, which is something that I think a lot of people don't realise in some way. It can be a little bit more of the non-conforming side of things, but you have changed into the prime space a lot more. Do you have something around the 85% LMI in Adelaide at the moment? So, sorry, no LMI product?
We do. So in Adelaide, it's 85% at the moment. Metro, Melbourne, Sydney and Brisbane, we're actually got up to 90%. So no LMI, no risk fee. So within 90%, that's only for owner-occupied P&I properties. In Adelaide, it's owner-occupied properties P&I as well.
Cool, no worries. And obviously all these things are always being reviewed and everything like that. Hopefully we can get some 90% action in Adelaide as well at some time.
I hear maybe mid-August that may be happening. So fingers crossed.
Excellent. I like the whispers. Very good. Okay, so we've got to, we'll go up to another question, a bit of a scenario here. We've got someone who's managed a restaurant for over 15 years, decided to go out on his own and buy his own restaurant, needs finance for fixtures and fittings. Is this something you can look out for Cooper? Is that something we'll be able to look at?
Yeah, so like I said, with us, you know, whether they're established business or not, it doesn't really matter. The three things we're looking for is that, you know, they have property to secure the loan, and then again, the loan purpose and the exit, whether they're looking for a more principal and interest loan to start paying it down. Like I said, we usually do interest only, but if we set them up with that interest only amount, anything they pay above that, they're paying principal off the loan, so they can essentially treat it like a P&I loan as well. But yeah, definitely something that we'd look at.
Cool. Thank you. Branko?
Yeah, so if Bill was a director of the restaurant that had been running for 15 years, then we could have used the strength of the business that had been running to lend towards the new business. It's something that we do a lot, and we have done a lot of lately. But if Bill had only managed, then we'd only be able to use help the new entity, the new restaurant, once the business has been running under Bill's ABN for a minimum of 6 months.
Nicole, is there anything that Bluestone could assist with that type of scenario?
How long did you say the ABN's been active for?
He's managed a restaurant for 15 years and decided to go out on his own and buy his own restaurant. So it could just be a change of structure there.
It would have to be looked at under an exception. So normally we used to have a short-term ABN product. Now it's minimum 12 months, but we can make exceptions if they've been in the same industry for a period of time.
Awesome. So chat to your BDM is the
Yes.
key on that one, I would say.
Yeah.
Thank you. Now we've got Fred Flintstone here. He needs finance for stock and he needs it for next week, but some of his accounts that are due to pay him are running late. Would you look to still finance him? And if so, on what terms? Cooper, sounds like you probably would.
Yep. So same again. We just look at doing a bridge for them, give them the funds up front, and then pay it back once they've sold that stock. So again, another deal for Speedy there. Yeah.
Easy. Thanks very much, Branko.
Yeah, Fred Flintstone, he would be eligible for funding from Prosper, as long as he's been trading for 6 months and has an average monthly turnover of $6,000. In addition, we've got 2 products currently on the market, so potentially a line of credit would suit him best. This would allow him to draw down on the funds and then only pay interest on the days that he's drawn down. There's been a strong uplift in construction with our line of credit, as it gives the customers flexibility that they require. So yeah, we'd definitely like to help Fred Flintstone. Got his number?
And that's nice and easy to access the line of credit then with you guys?
Yeah, definitely. It's a 15-minute application over the phone. We do everything. The transfer of bank statements to us. And then I've seen applications go from submitted to unconditionally approved within 7 seconds. So 7 seconds. Yeah, it's a very 7 seconds. Yes.
It's not giving much room for any competitors to get lower than 7 seconds now, is it? What are we at? Like minus 10 seconds is going to be the next one. Now, Nicole, just to give you a different question on this one. So we've got someone who's got a small default on their credit file. Would you still consider lending to them in a prime type of scenario, or would it still need to be going to a subprime type of product?
So when you say small default, it depends on the size of the default. On prime, we accept defaults that are $500 and under. Near prime, we'll look at $1,000 and under, or lodged more than 2 years ago.
Cool. Thank you very much. Okay, so our next one is going to be very relevant because we're on the last day of the financial year today. Happy New Year, everybody. Will you lend for ATO debt? Branko?
Yes. The easy answer to your question is yes, but I just want everyone to keep in mind the ATO often offer payment plans with very low interest rates. So when we pay out an ATO debt, it's generally for a greater purpose. For example, a client looking to purchase a commercial property through a major, but the bank won't consider them with ATO debt, or a client wanting to refinance their properties. So yes, we will at any time of the year.
Cool. Thank you. Cooper?
Oh, I couldn't get myself unmuted there. Yeah, quick one for Speedy. That's a yes for ATO debt.
Thank you. Surinder, how about yourself with Trailbook?
Absolutely. We love ATO debt. At the end of the day, 90% of brokers are small businesses in their own right. So more than happy to lend against for ATO debt.
Lovely, thank you very much. And Nicole, that sounds like something you do.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that. It'd be our near prime product. Yeah.
Nice one, thank you. Now we've got a number of different scenarios for different types of weird and wonderful things here. So is there anyone on the panel that can lend for the following? Now just put up your hand if you can, and let us know about the maximum LVR and loan amount. So we've got a hobby farm. Cooper wins, cool.
Yeah,
please
so,
don't. So Cooper?
No, go ahead. So the maximum amount, it just depends on, as long as they fit within the LVR and the loan purpose again makes sense, and the exit makes sense, we just treat it as a normal security for us.
Cool. So it doesn't matter what's on the title and what the place is like?
No, as long as we essentially do a desktop valuation and we're happy with what we value it. If it's a little bit trickier, then we will do a valuation, but typically with a hobby farm, depending on if it's rural, we'll usually lower the LVR down to about 50%. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Nicole.
Really depends with us. So it depends on location, the size of the farm, and whether or not they class it as income producing. But if it's like a residential property, they've got some animals and bits and pieces, but you know, it's valuation passes and everything, then we would do it. So it really depends on the valuation with us.
No problems. And the next one is non-income producing farms. So I'll stick with you, Nicole, on that one.
Again, depends on the size and the location. So we can only really go up to 5 acres. So, you know, our farm generally is bigger, so probably we wouldn't. If it's a little hobby farm, then yes, yeah.
And the 5 acres on that, is that a general rule for all properties, or is that just a farm rule, that one?
It is a general rule for all properties. Again, we can get exceptions sometimes, but as a general rule, 5 acres is our maximum.
No problems. And anyone else on that one, put your hand up. Cooper, over to you,
Yeah,
mate.
same again with the hobby farm for Speedy. We would lend against it for income producing or non-income producing farm, and typically about 50% LVR unless they're closer to a more metro area.
Thank you. Next one is an Airbnb, and an Airbnb with bad internet is where I am at the moment. So apologies about that again. Airbnb, hands up. Cooper, same again.
Yeah, so we just treat that as an investment property still, regardless of whether they're renting it out or doing it through Airbnb. So yeah, same.
Cool, no worries. And a startup company less than 12 months old. We'll go over to you, Branko. We haven't heard from you for a little while.
Yeah, so we do lend to startup companies that are less than 12 months old, but they've just got to be more than 6 months old. So in between the 6 and 12 months, perfect for us. And yeah, we've done a lot recently. So yeah, I've recently seen a lot of small businesses benefit.
No worries. Now, this is a general question as well. So we've talked about exit strategies in our session yesterday. You know, the normal downsizing is a very popular one, and super and all that type of stuff. What are the kind of more, I would say, out there, weird and wonderful exit strategies that have been okay with you guys? And we'll go with you, Cooper.
Yeah, so with the main thing that we're kind of looking for, and that I guess out there exit strategies for clients, typically we want to see a strong one when it's, you know, a high LVR. When we have clients that do have, you know, a really strong exit strategy like sale of goods or the sale of a property, things like that, we don't mind going up to 85, up to even 95% LVR on a property, where the client's saying, you know, they're going to look at refinancing, or if, for example, you know, a business that's a day old and they're just starting, typically we'll look at giving them a bridge for 12 months until they've had their ABN 12 months, and then they can kind of refinance into the more traditional type facility.
Cool, thank you. And Branko?
Yeah, because we're generally only short-term loans, 12 months to 24 months, we don't have an exit plan.
Easy, makes it easy. Nicole?
We're pretty up and down with our exit strategy, so nothing too extravagant. We like downsizing, selling of property, pretty solid exit strategies. Yeah.
Oh, the boring stuff. Boring stuff works though, doesn't it? Surinder, now, is there anything that would be related to for you guys with the rent rolls and the trail books and everything like that in regards to exit strategies? So maybe you've got people coming towards the end of their broking career.
Yeah, predominantly all the loans that we do are 5 years P&I amortizing. So they exit on their own as each month as they make their own repayments. We do see, particularly in the rent roll space at the moment, a lot of partners one partner buying out another partner. So one moving on and one looking to expand. But yeah, typically for an exit strategy, it's not required for us because all of our loans are amortizing from day one.
Thank you. And we'll stick with you, Surinder. What are your turnarounds at the moment?
On the holy grail of getting all the information required up front, once we get everything that we need, we're sort of 4 weeks beginning to end. That's cash in bank settled.
Thank you. Nicole?
So providing fully packaged deals. So first it will go to our broker support team. They'll check, make sure the documents are there, chase up anything that's missing. So they've got a 24-hour turnaround time. Once they're happy with everything, they'll pass it on to credit, and they've got a further up to 24 hours to issue the conditional approval. So providing everything's there, within 48 hours, you should get your conditional.
That's great. And has that been pretty consistent across the last few months?
Yeah, it has. So we've maintained that since February. Yeah.
Excellent. Great news. Branko?
Most applications are done over the phone. They take 15 minutes. As long as we've got the bank statements, generally for any loans that are up to $150,000, we can get done, settled same day, and in most circumstances get the funds put into the client's bank account within the same day as well. So we like to quote 24 hours, but yeah, obviously it can happen faster.
Even in 7 seconds in some occasions.
7 seconds. It's true story.
True story, of course. And Cooper.
Yeah, so with Speedy, because like I said, we deal in the property secured space. Typically, once we have the app form and the docs back, usually a day to get the offer out, a day to have the docs drawn up, and then the third day to settle. So usually about a 3-day turnaround.
Cool. Lovely, thanks very much, Cooper. Well, look, that brings us to the end of the panel session here. So again, I'd like to thank Nicole from Bluestone, Cooper from Speedy, Surinder from Trailbook Loans, and Brainco from Prosper. And I'll hand back to you, Joff.
Great, thanks, Mark. So now we'll move on to the keynote speech, which is Practical Strategies for Stress Reduction. Beck Smith is a TEDx speaker and expert in mental fitness who consults to organisations on ways to reduce stress, prevent burnout, improve communication, and optimise team structure. She is a former physiotherapist with a background in psychology who teaches dance and yoga classes when she isn't working as a positive psychology coach. As someone who has recovered from burnout and mental illness, Beck uses her personal experience as well as her professional knowledge to help others optimise their lives. Let's hear from Beck.
Introduction and welcome everybody. I'm Beck. I'm currently sitting in cold, chilly Adelaide, and I would like to acknowledge that I'm on Kaurna country where I am. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land because their connection to the waters and the lands of the Adelaide Plains region is just as important to living Aboriginal people today as it has been for thousands of years before. So I want to acknowledge the elders, past, present and emerging, and the spiritual, emotional and physical connection that they have to Adelaide Plains region. Wherever you are joining me from today, I hope that you are well and thanks for connecting in. Today's session is going to be around some mental fitness strategies that you can take to manage stress. Originally, I had talked about this session being a stress reduction session. However, reducing stress is not always possible, as I'm sure many of you can attest to. So what can we do to better manage it so that it doesn't impact us as much? That's going to be the focus of this session. I'm going to give you a brain hack for managing stress better and also a body hack for managing stress better. And these two different strategies are things that you can do in combination and share with other people as well. So thank you for being here and let's get into it. Most of the work that I do is around investigating the cogs that are going on in our brain. A lot of people don't necessarily know what's underneath the surface. So these cogs can sometimes look a little bit like this. We're not necessarily aware of all of our thinking processes and what's going on in our brain. There is a lot of subconscious activity happening a lot of the time, and this is often what leads to stress. We may not even be aware of what is stressing us out, which is why sometimes some clever hacks for body and brain can be useful for getting under the hood, so to speak, and being able to manage that stress a lot better. The three different areas that I speak to when I'm talking about building our mental fitness, it's a little bit like going to the brain gym, working on our strength, working on our flexibility, and working on our endurance with different types of exercises. So I'm going to give you some more context around strength, flexibility, and endurance toward the end of the session. But I want to start by actually talking about some of the things that get in the way of our cogs turning properly. So here on the screen that you're seeing at the moment, and you're welcome to take a photo of this if this helps you, these are some factors that get in the way of our mental fitness. So you can see that on the left of the diagram, there are some things that make us mentally more fragile. On the right, things that make us mentally rigid. And down toward the bottom, things that zap our mental energy and make us more lethargic. So the few things that I'm going to be talking about today, we're going to cover as we go, but emotional reactivity is one that can come up a lot for me personally, particularly when I'm stressed. So that's where we're going to start. Now, in terms of emotional reactivity, and when we start to have a reaction to something that happens in our lives and it stresses us out, one of the common problems is that when a stimulus or a situation happens and leads to some kind of emotional response, we think that that's the end of the story. So I'm going to unpack what we call the STR model for you today. And STR stands for stimulus, thought, response. Because most of us think that, well, of course I got angry because this happened, we tend to make that quick jump from the stimulus to the response. But many of us forget that there's this thinking part in the middle. So what you're going to see on your screen at the moment is that in between the stimulus and the response, there's this gap. And this is where our thoughts occur. Now, those thoughts may be an accurate representation of what has happened, but they may not be accurate either. And the stimulus that has caused a thought could have happened from outside of us. So it could have been an event has occurred. Somebody has knocked over the glass of milk. Or that stimulus could have been more of an internal event. It could have been a sensation that we've had in our body that stresses us out, a pain of some sort, or even a thought that then leads to another thought. Now, once we get into that thought space of looking, well, are these thoughts accurate or not? It leads to this response, which could be an emotional response or it could be a behavioural response. So if something has happened in your workday, in your family life, in your friendships, that has triggered some kind of emotion in you, that might be something that you hold inside and you don't express, or it might be an emotional response that then also comes out in your behaviour. You might get snappy. You might cry, you might yell. And so you can have an emotional response and a behavioural response. They're not always observable. They're not always seen by other people as well. So this is very much about looking inside of you and starting to analyse, okay, when I'm stressed out, when a situation happens that has stressed me out, what are the thoughts that have led me to this? So I'm going to give you an example. The last time I was travelling to Melbourne, which was pre-COVID, back in the days of free travel, I was on a flight and there was a flight attendant that came along and asked us what we would like to drink. I asked for a cup of tea and the two people next to me asked for orange juice. When she started pulling stuff out of the drinks cart, she handed the two passengers next to me their juice and I was waiting for my tea. Now that wasn't so problematic. I thought, okay, that's fine. The hot drinks are coming last. Then the cart moved back to the aisle behind me and still didn't have my cup of tea. I thought, oh, that's okay. Just waiting, just waiting. And then the cart moved further along. I thought, oh, I wonder if they're waiting for hot water. Maybe they're out of boiling water and it's just taking a little while. And my tea didn't come. Now, I started to get frustrated at this point. And the flight attendant who had been serving me, whose name was Pam, I started to create some thoughts about her and started to have a response in my body, which was muscular tension. My heart rate actually started to go a little bit faster because I was frustrated and I just wanted my cup of tea, damn it. So in the slide that's coming up now, you can see that the stimulus thought response model is also paired with this kind of thinking that if this happens, then I think this. So for instance, in this situation with Pam, the flight attendant, if Pam doesn't bring me my tea, then I start to think Pam is forgetful, Pam is useless, Pam's a cow, Pam should have brought me my tea, right? So a lot of the time when there's frustration involved, we often have an idea of what should have happened rather than what is happening right there. And so once I've had those thoughts, then it leads to this response around I'm angry and I'm frustrated. Now, in this moment, I had to reflect that ironically, I was flying to Melbourne to teach this kind of content around managing our thoughts, managing our stress, and calming ourselves down in frustrating situations. So I was actually able to ask myself, what would I tell somebody else in this situation? And I started to change the thought patterns that I had. And this is when we start to become more practiced at using the STR model, it becomes more automated for us. It's a really great way of starting to channel our thoughts toward things that are more productive for us rather than unproductive for us. So in this instance, I was able to change my if-then thinking to more, well, what if thinking? Well, what if this is going on instead? Or what if that is going on instead? So when you start to open up to different possibilities, rather than just thinking about what should happen, you start to get a little bit more expansive around what might be happening or what could be happening, then you start to feel different. So in this instance, I started to ask myself, okay, what if I change my thoughts and ask some questions? What if Pam is sick? What if she's forgotten me today because she's really stressed? What could possibly be going on for her? And then the feeling is not so much anger and frustration anymore. My response becomes, I'm less stressed, and I actually feel more compassionate, and I actually feel a bit more caring toward this woman who's forgotten my tea. So it's just a small example, but think about how many times in your day you might have these little stress triggers and how much that can accumulate over the course of the day. First thing in the morning, you know, you kind of something might go wrong at home. You know, the cat's bowl gets knocked over and water goes everywhere. Oh, that's just a little stress. And then you leave the house and then you get in the car and realize you've forgotten your lunch. And then somebody makes a comment in the office that just rubs you up the wrong way. And these little things can accumulate during the day so that by the end of the day, you're going, oh, this was terrible. The whole day was just awful. But if we could actually start to stop in the moment that we're starting to have these thoughts and go, all right, is the thought or the belief that I've got about this situation accurate? Is the thought or belief that I'm having right now productive for me? And can I change my thinking? Instead of going, if this happens, then I feel this. What if? How could we open ourselves up to different possibilities? So how many examples can you think of where you could possibly transform a should into a could? So on that day, Pam maybe should have got me my tea, but she didn't. So just in thinking, well, Pam could have got me my tea, but it didn't happen. Then I started to open myself up to possibilities. So as you can see in the image on your screen, instead of being lost in the maze of my thinking, I was actually able to elevate myself to a perspective where I could see the thoughts that I was having from a different lens, from a different viewpoint. And from that viewpoint, I could go, oh, this is a much better pathway for me to take. So I didn't get my tea. What else could I do about that? So the next flight attendant that came along, I flagged her down and I said, could I possibly get a cup of tea? And she went, no problems, let me go get that for you. And she did. So I think the old version of me could have sat there, not asked for what I needed, stewed on it, actually stayed with that little bit of resentment and frustration. So how many times in a day do we do that? And the next time you have one of those instances in your day where you're getting frustrated, where you're getting lost in the shoulds, how can you open yourself up to what if thinking? How can you start to see in your mind's eye that model of STR and come back to that thought space and steer your thinking towards something that's more productive for you? So that's the brain hack that I wanted to share with you today. And I hope that those visuals and some of that perspective is really, really useful for helping to shape some of the small stresses that happen day to day. Now, a common question that I get asked at this point is, but what if I can't change my thinking about something? What if I know that my thoughts are accurate and I know that I'm right and I'm still feeling frustrated? Well, then you might need to use a different strategy. So the tools that I teach in mental fitness, the exercises that I give for people to improve their strength and their flexibility and their endurance, it's a little bit like a repertoire of different exercises that you use at different times when you need to. You wouldn't use a flexibility exercise if you were trying to improve your strength and vice versa. It's like a toolkit. You're not going to be using a hammer when actually you need a screwdriver. So STR is one of those exercises or one of those tools in your toolkit that you can use when maybe that little shift in thinking can be useful to give you a more productive response. However, it's not necessarily always going to be the most useful strategy. So this is where I'm going to now change and start talking about a body hack that we can start to use and give you some context around how our brain connects into our bodies. So what you're seeing on your screen at the moment is a model called the Triune Brain. And this is based on evolutionary biology. So the theory goes that as we evolved a long time, that we first started with this very primal brain, what you'll see on your screen as red at the moment. So some people refer to this as the reptile brain or the lizard brain. It's very much concerned with our safety and our survival. It regulates all of our physical body processes, like it helps us to regulate our body heat. It will send signals to us to let us know if we're thirsty and need water, if we're hungry and we need food, if we are feeling too cold or hot, need shelter, etc. Now, it's also responsible for telling us if there's a threat in our environment that might be a predator of some sort. So this red part of the brain is all about giving you danger signals so that you can stay safe and do what you need to do to protect yourself. The blue part of the brain is sometimes called the mammal brain. Sometimes we refer to this as the emotional or the limbic system. You might have heard about the limbic system being referred to in the brain. As mammals evolved on from reptiles, they started to become more social creatures, and we're one of those mammals. We are connected to other human beings, and feeling a sense of belonging, feeling that other people care about us, feeling that we are connected, that we're loved, is the most important thing to this blue part of the brain. So if we are connected to our tribe, it meant that we were, in kind of caveman and cavewoman days, much more likely to survive. And so the blue and the red part of our brain communicate in order to protect us. And this blue part is more about social protection and how well am I connected. The green part of the brain is what you're going to be using when you are making decisions, problem solving, and it's referred to as the executive part of the brain. You may have heard it being spoken about before as the prefrontal cortex, and this is where all of the logical stuff happens. Now, the thing about these three developmental areas is that the brain and the body will put priority on survival before it puts priority on logic and other decision making. So what happens if we're in a stressed state is that the green part of our brain kind of goes offline and doesn't want to work for us anymore. So if we're having an emotional response to something that starts to hijack our thinking, even if we want to calm ourselves down, even if we want to be able to concentrate, even if we want to be able to do our best work, we can't, because the blue and the red part of our brain have hijacked us. Now, if you're in a constant state of stress, it means that you're not going to be able to think clearly through anything that you need to do. So actually managing our stress is a really important thing, not just from the perspective of staying healthy and happy and calm, but actually just getting stuff done, being the most productive version of ourselves that we can. So with these three centers in mind, I'm going to introduce you to this concept called the negativity bias. Now, this is another evolutionary biology idea. The negativity bias is the tendency of the brain to only look at the bad things, as you can see on the cartoon on your screen. So the rest of you might be going, oh, look at this beautiful, amazing experience. Look at, oh, these beautiful people in my life. But your brain will just want to steer back to, no, this is problematic. The reason that it happens is, again, because it kept us safe to focus on problems. So if you imagine as a caveman or a cavewoman that you're walking along and you hear a rustle in the grass, it really does serve your survival needs if you pay attention to that, right? And think, oh my gosh, it could be a predator. I need to act and get away from here now. Whereas if you didn't have a negativity bias and if you were just kind of like, oh, I wonder what that is. Let's be curious and let's go and explore it. Then you might get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. So the negativity bias evolved. Well, natural selection really kind of kept selecting people who had more anxious brains because they were the ones who were on more of a lookout for danger. So what it means is that we have this kind of evolutionary hangover where even if great stuff is happening for us, even if we have everything that we need, even if we are surrounded by people that we love, even if we're having a myriad of positive experiences and great interactions, your brain will still want to look at the problems and go, oh, yeah, but I still don't have the car that I want, or I still haven't hit my goal, or I still don't have enough of this. And so a lot of us can slip into negative patterns of thinking and think that then there's something wrong with us. A lot of people find that it's actually hard to practice gratitude because of this negativity bias. But when I first found out that we have a natural negativity bias in our brain, I was so relieved. I thought for the first time, oh my gosh, I'm not broken. There's nothing wrong with me. This is great, because your brain will actually put about 5 to 6 times more emphasis on negative information than it does on positive information. And that's just a natural human condition. But the body hack that I'm going to teach you today is about how can we rewire that so that we can appreciate the good things in our life and leverage from the positive emotion that it brings. What I'm introducing on the screen now are these 2 different pathways in our nervous system. So in the middle, you can see the central nervous system, which is made up of the brain and spine. Coming off of that, you have the autonomic nervous system, which has these 2 different branches. So roughly we can split the autonomic nervous system into the parasympathetic, which you can see in purple, and the sympathetic nervous system in green. The parasympathetic being about rest and restoration and healing your system. This will kick in when you're in a positive frame of mind, and it will kick in when you're in a calm state. Whereas the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight system, is all about, I need to mobilize. I either need to get away from danger or I need to fight danger off. So this is what is going to kick in when you are stressed. So what happens with these different regions of the brain is if the red or the blue part of your brain is detecting some kind of physical or social threat, it will then send signals into the fight and flight system to activate stuff in your body, increasing your heart rate, making you breathe faster so you can get oxygen in to run or fight. It starts to have an impact on your pupils, dilating your pupils so that you can see better. And it also starts to bring blood flow toward your muscles in your arms and legs so that you can activate your body. And it takes blood flow away from your organ systems. Now, this has a negative impact on our health over time, which is why stress actually has an important role in the development of diabetes and cardiovascular disease and other disease processes. So it's really important to start to regulate and learn how to regulate our nervous system so that we can actually get that healing and blood flow that we need into our organ systems to keep us physiologically as well as mentally healthy. I sometimes describe the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system in terms of a brake and an accelerator in your body. So the parasympathetic being that brake that slows everything down and allows the rest and the restoration to occur. And the sympathetic nervous system, that fight and flight accelerator being, all right, everything switch on. The relevance of this is that over the last few years, there's been more and more research done in the topic of heart rate variability. When we look at the heart rate, it gives us an indication as to whether the sympathetic or parasympathetic nervous system is more dominant at any one time. In other words, are you using your accelerator more or using your brake more? Because ultimately, just like a car, the vehicle of your body will not function well if you're trying to use one or the other. It actually needs both. So we need to have a balance between that brake and accelerator. I'm going to bring up a diagram now that shows some heart rhythm patterns. On the screen, what you're seeing is not just an indication of heart rate, which is how fast your heart is going, but it's an indication of whether it's going faster or slower. So when the line is going up, that's when your heart rate is accelerating. The sympathetic nervous system is kicking in. And when the line is going down, that's when you are starting to slow down. That's the parasympathetic nervous system kicking in. So the brake and the accelerator on the top part of the diagram here in red is fluctuating in a bit more of a haphazard way. It's kind of like, oh, I'm slowing down, no, I'm speeding up, I'm slowing down, oh, and it's a bit all over the place. This is what happens when we are in a frustrated or anxious or worried kind of emotional state. The sympathetic nervous system kicks in, that red part of the brain starts to send signals into your autonomic nervous system, and this is what happens with our heart rate variability. However, in the bottom part of the diagram, you'll see what we call nervous system coherence, which is where the brake and the accelerator are fluctuating nice and smoothly. If you think about driving your car, it's not a great idea to be stomping on both pedals at the same time or haphazardly going on and off of them. It's going to wear out your vehicle and lead to a very bumpy and unsafe ride. And it's the same with our body. So if we can just smoothly come off of the brake to then activate the accelerator and then slowly come off the accelerator to put the brake on, that is a much smoother trip and it's much safer for us, which is what we want to see in our nervous system patterns as well. And this is what is elicited in your body when you start to have more experiences of positive emotion. Now, this is something that you can start to instigate, and you can choose for yourself by practicing positive emotion, a little bit like you're rewiring that negativity bias. So in that little section down the bottom of the screen at the moment, you'll see that this is what we often see when people are experiencing appreciation, care, love, gratitude. So a little body hack that you can use to shift your heart rhythm patterns from what looks very stressful to that more coherent pattern is a 3-part system that the Heart Math Institute has researched, which is called heart-based appreciation. So the body hack that I want to share with you today, these 3 steps are, first of all, and you can do it with me right now, slow down your breathing as the first of 3 steps. So take a deeper breath than you normally would and breathe out slowly, maybe even longer than your inhalation. Now, I know that deep breathing gets talked about a lot, and it probably, people will talk about, oh, just take a breath, which can kind of sound very dismissive, but actually what you're doing when you slow down your breathing is really important. What's happening is you are activating the parasympathetic nervous system and actually hacking your brain and sending signals into that red part of your brain that everything is okay. If you're running away from a predator, there's no way you're going to be breathing this slowly. So this is sending a subconscious signal into those parts of the brain to say it's okay. We don't have to go into survival mode. We can actually transcend survival mode and go into logical thinking mode. Now, the second step around this, once you've slowed down your breathing, is to think about your rib cage or your lungs or your heart and visualize where that breathing is coming from. So bring focus into your body's sensations. Just take a few seconds now, maybe close your eyes if you want to, and focus in on your heart. Maybe even visualize it's beating. Can you feel it speeding up? Could you feel it slowing down? Now, what you're doing with that second step is the use of part of your brain. It's very important to part of your brain to calm down the limbic system, to calm down your emotions. The insula is responsible for something called interoception, which is our internal body's systems starting to get an internal sensation of our body. So not just the sensations of the nerves of, our arms and our legs, but the nerves that are telling us what's going on within our internal body. That then is starting to itself have these connections into that mammal brain to say, hey, you can calm down as well. The third part is around bringing in the green part of your brain and actually starting to think more about what can you see right now that is good in your world. So starting to think now as the third step, what is something that you appreciate in your life? Maybe it's a person, maybe it's a pet, maybe it's a happy memory, and call that to mind. Bring in that green part of your brain, the logical executive part, in a positive way. And as you're breathing, imagine that you are now bringing gratitude in as you breathe in. Heart rate might be speeding up a little. And then breathe out and send that appreciation outwards. So training your brain to look for the positives and to start to practice feeling appreciation is that important third step. We also know, as a quick little tip here from neuroscience, that it takes about 17 seconds for these patterns to shift and for different neurochemicals to start flooding your system when you shift into a positive state. So if you think a happy thought, if you think about something you're grateful for, don't just hang on to it for 3 seconds and then move on to the next stressful thought. See if you can savor that moment for 17 seconds or more. So if you can sit in a feeling of gratitude for about 20 seconds, then you really start to see some physiological as well as psychological shifts it starts to change the way that your dopamine and your serotonin is acting in your brain and starts to shift your cardiovascular and other rhythms and nervous system activation through your body as well. So those 3 steps in summary again: slow down your breathing, start to think about your internal body and feel that, and then start to shift your thinking into something of appreciation and gratitude. So that little body hack there is going to have a significant impact on managing your stress. And it might be something that you just do in one breath. It might be something you do in between client meetings. It might be something that you do in the car, on the train, on the way home. It might just be something you do in the shower. So see if you can integrate it, whether it's for 1 breath or 50, sometime during your day. The more frequently you do it, then the more likely you are to be able to rewire that negativity bias in your brain to be able to appreciate what's good in your world and reduce that stress response, both for the benefit of your body and your mind. Here are some other little hacks that I want to share with you, some positivity tips. So one thing that I teach, and I'm talking to a group soon about this, is around keeping a done list. So instead of just having a to-do list of, oh, I've got to do that, I've got to do that, I've got to do that, keep a done list. So keep that list of going, this is what I've accomplished. Because when you feel a sense of achievement in your day, it increases the amount of dopamine in your brain and actually makes you more motivated to want to do more. Another positivity tip is to celebrate strengths. So when you're looking at somebody, and even if there's somebody who's frustrating you, think about what strengths they're showing. I know I've got somebody in my life who sometimes really frustrates me because she is so blunt to the point where sometimes I think, oh my God, you're so rude. But when I think about her in terms of, do you know what? She has a real strength in honesty. I can start to see that through a different lens, and I start to see that not as problematic, but I see it as a strength instead of a weakness. And it doesn't just help my relationship with her, it may not even make any impact on her, but it changes the way that I feel about that interaction. And then the third tip is expressing appreciation. So once you have felt something that you appreciate, share it with somebody, especially directly with the person. If you are feeling appreciation for them, tell them how grateful you are for them. Say thank you. Tell them that you've noticed something that they've done. And in that sharing, there's a huge influx of positive emotions, positive neurochemicals, positive hormones that come into your body, as well as for that other person. So give it a go. Express appreciation to somebody today. So a question that I would like to leave you with as we wrap up this presentation today is, what could change in your work life or even in your personal life if you were to improve one aspect of your mental fitness? So what would happen if you started to become practiced at that STR model and starting to shift your unproductive thoughts to productive thoughts? What could shift if you started to use that body hack of that heart-based appreciation breathing? Or indeed, coming up on your screen right now, there's a slide which shows a range of different mental fitness exercises that you can take. So in terms of building our mental strength, starting to focus on character strengths, like I talked about, instead of just thinking, oh, somebody's really blunt and rude, start to think about it in terms of their strength of honesty. And start to think about, what are your strengths that you bring out in your behaviour every day? Awareness. So STR is really one of those skills that helps us to become more aware of what's going on in our internal processing and communicate that better. Authenticity, which is about being less fake and keeping things a bit more real and expressing a true side of yourself. Mental flexibility, which is about practicing creative thinking, innovation and problem solving. Letting go of perfectionism and starting to practice self-compassion as well as compassion toward others. And another flexibility exercise, which is letting go of doubt and starting to trust more. Or what might change in your life if you started to let go of being mentally lethargic and started to build your mental energy and endurance by living into your values and what's really important to you. Letting go of being exhausted and busy all the time and actually practicing some stillness, even if it's just in little micro doses. Or what would shift if you started to get control of your fear and started to practice more emotional mastery and started to use the power of your emotions instead of trying to repress them? So these are the 9 topic areas in our mental fitness that I teach. Different exercises for each of those topics as well. And if you'd like to find out more about them, you can go to this website, which is up on your screen at the moment, which is smithandwellness.com/resources. There is a TEDx talk there that I've done on mental fitness. There's some YouTube vlogs on there that you can check out. And also there's an online course which takes you through those 9 different topic areas one by one that you can explore in your own time. Now, a couple of questions that often come up at this stage. A lot of people ask me around mindfulness and meditation. So one thing that I want to suggest is that actually in that whole arena around stillness, meditation and mindfulness are some of the things that I teach. And there is a lot of research to support that when you start to practice mindfulness, even if it's broken down into very small segments during your day, you don't have to sit for 30 minutes or an hour for mindfulness or meditation to make an impact. You can break it into smaller components, and it actually makes a huge difference, not only to your experience, but it's been shown through MRI studies that it increases the grey matter and the white matter in your brain. It actually helps your processing. So there's a really great app that I use called Insight Timer. A lot of people go, oh, are there apps that I should use? Is there a YouTube video that I should go to? I love Insight Timer. So for those people who are wondering what a good meditation and mindfulness resource is, go and check that out. It's downloadable on your phone, and you can actually put in a time to say, look, I've only got 5 minutes, you know, or I've only got 3 minutes. Give me a meditation that I can do in a short amount of time, or it has longer meditations that it can take you through as well. So for those people who are wondering, yes, mindfulness is a very useful strategy for building your mental fitness, and Insight Timer is a great resource that you can use. And that other question, which I touched on before around, well, what if this isn't going to be useful for me in a particular situation? Use this mental fitness model like a little bit of a toolkit. So you can select one part that might be useful today, you can select 3 parts, and tomorrow you might find that you need something else. So you can also use it as a bit of a self-assessment to go, what do I need right now? So I hope that this session has been useful for you today, as giving you some concrete and practical strategies for managing your stress. As I said earlier in the session, please feel free to share it with other people as well. Talk about these strategies in your family, share it with your friends, because the more people who understand some of these little mental fitness hacks, then the healthier we are all going to be together. So enjoy the rest of your eSummit. Good luck, go well, take care, and stay in touch with me online. If you have any questions following the session that come up for you, please feel free to get in touch with the FBAA and they can pass that on to me, or you can also get in touch with me on the website via your screen. So thank you again, go well, take care, bye for now.
Well, that was a great presentation by Beck. I hope you all got a lot out of it. I know I did. So it pays to look after our mental health. We can produce more for ourselves and our families, and we can make our lives better if we look after our mental health as well as our physical health. So next session is a session on how major life events influence the purchase of personal insurance. And to present that, we have Peter Kelly from ALI Group. Welcome, Peter.
Thanks, Joff, and good morning to everyone. You got my screen okay? Yep. And I think we might be a little bit behind, so I'll do my best, Joff, to pick up a couple of minutes for you, mate. I'll skip through this pretty quickly. So I guess to start with our mission statement, that's pretty straightforward. Our goal is to work with brokers and only brokers to make the purchase of protection sort of synonymous with taking out a mortgage, a bit like when somebody buys a car, they get CTB whether they like it or not. In the UK, it's actually mandatory. In some parts of the UK, it's mandatory when you take out a mortgage to take out some protection as well. I think that's probably not a bad place to be. Okay, so the life stages, we got a survey done by Deloitte mid last year, and it's interesting, that was sort of right in the heart of COVID. But we looked at what are the life stages and events that trigger the purchase of protection, and the obvious one there, number one, is having children. Interestingly, buying a home and financial change, number two and number three. I guess that what it tells us is that people are open. There's a captive audience there, and given you guys are doing most of the new stuff here in Australia, I think there's the evidence that the people have actually said they're the triggers. So if you're talking to a customer, it just makes sense to talk to them about the risks and protection. Really quickly, there's probably 3 ways nowadays. It used to be inbound and outbound calls, although the outbound, some changes have seen them disappear. There's no right or wrong in this, but typically with inbound calls, there can be some pressure. People, you're talking to someone who's working from a script. It's not that personal, I don't feel comfortable all the time. Similarly, online, you can do it in your own time, so very convenient, but you don't necessarily have someone to defer to or ask a question. You're pretty much on your own. I guess the best place to do it is with your mortgage broker, because you can actually have an open discussion with your mortgage broker. You don't, as a broker, need to be an insurance expert. We give you the training and the knowledge that you need to be able to have a meaningful conversation with your customers and just help educate them around the risks that come with borrowing and the need to have at least thought about some sort of plan B. ALI actually commissioned an independent survey back in December last year. All policyholders who'd taken out a My Protection plan, and we asked them some questions around what their knowledge of protection was before they actually took out their mortgage, and then what their experience was like with their brochures. I'm just going to read some of the takeouts from that survey. Customers were not all that proactive about personal insurance before the discussion with their broker, with less than a quarter of customers having searched online for life insurance before, and 9 out of 10 customers said it was their broker who raised the topic of loan protection insurance. So that's pretty consistent with what we would think anecdotally. Customers varied in the extent to which they'd previously considered these risks, but the majority of 58% agreed to some extent they had not considered the risks of not having insurance until their broker mentioned it to them. 32% strongly agreed, and while 26 tended to agree with the statement. While it's often considered a topic few want to think about or talk about, 70% of those surveyed say that they were interested in the idea of insurance when it was first raised. It's worth noting that all surveyed went on to take out a policy, so this interest only grew from that first point. So it begs the question, where would these policyholders be now if their broker hadn't brought up the notion of protection? I think it's pretty fair to say that it's unlikely that they would have done something off their own bat and gone and put cover in place, despite the fact that they're taking on this pretty significant debt. So there's your role to play, is that one of educator. There we go. The experience that they had, 90% said they voted with their feet, said it was really good. The main reason most people will deal with their broker is they actually trust them. They don't trust online. They don't trust somebody over the phone who they don't know. They do trust you as their broker. So you're in the perfect position again to be able to have that conversation with them. So we've been 18 years and counting, as the slide says. I think just quickly here, last year we paid 14.2 million in claims. 73% of the trauma claims we paid were for cancer. That's just an extraordinary number, and it just highlights for me the importance of that trauma benefit. The good thing with cancer is survival rates are much better now, particularly with early intervention, but it's actually a really long road to get there, and it's an expensive road to get there. The one thing I see the trauma benefit in our policy as the hero of our product. It's the one thing that most people don't tend to have. you don't have it typically within your super, and you don't go out and seek it in the marketplace. So for me, it's the trauma, but trauma is the thing that brings people undone financially, because you have the event and you're still here and you've got to battle on. So really important, that trauma piece, and we've got it now with our recently enhanced product. We now cover 17 defined events. It's never been stronger in terms of that type of cover. Finally, I'd just say for those that are not authorised, there is a link there that you can go in to express interest, and someone from ALI will be in touch depending on where your location is. If you are authorised and you would like, you think maybe it's timely to have a refresher, please reach out to Beck, Fee or myself. We'd be more than happy to catch up with you, although I think the news this morning, as somebody alluded to earlier, is we might be heading to lockdown. I just heard before. Time will tell, some Delta variant out there. I'll pass back to you, Jock. That's me done.
Great, thanks, Peter. It's a great presentation and something that we should all be doing for our clients. Okay, so we'll move along now to hear from our Managing Director, Peter White, AM, and Nigel Rausch, the CEO of Two Red Kites. This is a recorded presentation because Peter couldn't be here live to present. He's got a very busy travel schedule in advocating for our industry. So here is the education session that was recorded in the first Victoria Tasmania eSummit, and it'll provide you with information on the tech space today and where it's likely to go in the future. It's a Q&A session, so let's get started.
And welcome everyone again to today. Also, I do want to say thank you to Senator the Honourable Jane Hume for the opening address that she's giving, and we look forward to hearing from her not only through these sessions but also in the future as well. I'd also like to thank Nigel, who's joining us this morning. You there, Nigel?
Hi.
There you are. G'day, mate. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Good, mate. Good. Thanks for joining us. Today we're looking at, I guess, the future of, or where the future is going with technology in the financial services sector and within broking businesses, and just in general where that market is treading. And I think it's very timely after coming out of the back of COVID, where we did everything digitally. It worked for some, not for everyone. And so we have a mixture of face-to-face and digital these days. But I think it'd be great to get an understanding of a few of the things that are happening now, as well as your view on where you think the future's going in regards to within technologies within businesses, and hopefully give some people some understanding directions of maybe what they should be doing in their business. So Nigel, I might just sort of start with a bit of an opening thought, just a general thought from yourself as to where is tech at the moment? I mean, there's so much talk about blockchains and AI and all this sort of stuff. Where really is the tech space at the moment, and where do you see it going in the next, say, 5 years, just in a broad general sense?
Absolutely. Okay, so the tech industry is actually going crazy at the moment, as you can imagine. As you know, a year ago, you couldn't buy a webcam. That's a great example of how everything changed. People needed webcams to do Zoom calls. The same's happening with people realizing that they need to put their tech in a place that everyone can access all the time, securely, of course, instead of the old way of you need to be in the office, access this document, work on it, and then finish working on it. That was let's say the old way. Now, so tech is going that way forward, as well as we're getting a lot more of the interesting security things, like it's now actually at the point that if you're talking about blockchain, all we think about blockchain normally is dollars and cents, okay, or Bitcoin and things like that. But they're using that same type of technology for now property transfers and things like that, to track a property transfer and you've got now a unique identifier saying this was that particular property transfer, and you can keep the chain of events of that. So there's some really interesting, and other people are using it for contract management, so that each change of a contract is recorded into the blockchain as a key, and you now know that that contract was that particular format at that moment in time, so that if someone did make a change to it in some way later, it can be, you can verify it against a blockchain, which is a, you know, something that can't be changed. So
and now that's really interesting, because just sit and look, sorry, I probably should have let everybody know, Nigel is our tech expert at the FBAA, and he's doing a whole lot of software development for us on our CRM and so on. And Nigel runs a business called Two Red Kites. Now, Nigel, I got to ask this because it's been burning me forever. Where did you get the name Two Red Kites? Tell me about, how does that interrelate with technology?
Okay, so our main language that okay, so my previous partner and I, we actually put a whole day aside. I don't know if anyone's started up, I've started up multiple businesses and sold them off and done all those type of things. And my business partner and I put a day aside to actually go try to pick a name. And we had our pre-sequel ideas of cloud, because we do a lot of stuff in the cloud. Our main language that we write in is called Ruby, which is red. And there was two of us, and we came up with two, red for Ruby, and kites because they're in the clouds. And we didn't want to have that, tech stuff or tech this or tech that type company. We wanted to have something that was a little bit different. We now abbreviate. This is my new shirt I've only just gotten. I'm trying to go over the top, but we now call ourselves 2RK just to make it a little bit simpler for people as well. But yeah, that's where that came from. And it's a little bit unique, and hopefully people remember it. So as I say, funny name, but serious business.
Very good, and I certainly remember it. And it's thank you for sharing that. That was a little impromptu, but and it's always interesting how names get developed and what's sitting behind. Well, I find it fascinating anyhow. Thank you, sir. Coming back to what you're saying, I was just, as you were talking before about the connecting chains of events through blockchain as such, and what that looks like as to how you get a UIP, a unique identifier, and so on with it. It's for someone like me who's been in the industry for a long time. I remember back to a thing where the land title of a property was called a chain of title, and when you transferred a property between owners, you get in settlements a stack of paper like this, just monumental stack of paper. And you had to go through line by line by line of the chain of title to validate its authenticity and legal ownership of the property and transfer the property. And it's almost like it's taken that old process that then became a Torrance title, and it all changed from there, into a digitized form of that style of thought process to validate the entire chain of history of events, that it's all good and all legal. Is that fair assumption?
Yeah, and look, we build, so probably the background here is, and I think where Peter was going before is that there's going to be some really exciting new things everyone's going to see shortly from the FBAA back-end system, which is going to be really exciting for you, which we're working on at the moment. But Two Red Kites actually do lots of building, from consignment systems through to a bereavement support system through to babysitting systems. So we've worked in so many different domains, and it's a lot of fun because of that. But one of the things that we get really worried is when someone comes to us with hey, here's something totally new, we want to do this. And there is no previous process. They don't even have a paper-based process for it. And we're going, okay, you need to at least do it in paper first, prove the concept, because paper can get changed really quickly. Okay, once you write some code and you're stuck with that, it costs money to change. So I'm a firm believer that it's really important to work out those paper-based processes first. Remember that those paper-based processes won't flow straight into web-based processes, because in a paper-based one, you might have a compulsory field like last name, but you'll still hand that form off to the next person without that last name in there. A online form is going to say, nope, you can't submit that until you put that last name in. Okay, so you have to remember those type of things. but you're now getting a lot more control over that environment. So that's, I believe, you have to watch how those things work, and then it's just a standard growth pattern for them.
Sure. And is that sort of like the first base if you're going to customize your own software? So yeah, we look at that customization process. I remember going back 10, 20 years, maybe longer, back in the very early days, if you went to a developer to customize software for you, you sort of double the time frame and double the cost, and you might be getting near the mark of where it's going to land. Very different world these days, but I mean, principally, is that what you do? You take your paper process, map it out, and then build a customized software underneath that so it suits your particular business rather than a box off a shelf?
Exactly. So funny enough, like even yesterday, a client that I had that was, oops, got something popping up. Okay. A client that I had yesterday that was actually, and their company is actually called Poles and Holes. Okay, so they actually do electrical poles at construction sites, and I guess you can guess what the holes is all about. And they basically, I gave them a proposal for a custom solution because they had rewritten their original application in Access Database, and they had the ability for multiple people to use it. So, and they actually got, they went, okay, I'm going to use an off-the-shelf product to do this. It can do everything we can do, and it's only going to cost me $200 a month compared to, say, $20,000 or $30,000 or $50,000 to develop it. And they actually called me yesterday and went, okay, we realized it created so much extra work for us having to try to follow somebody else's process, not our process. And I always say it's the cart pushing the horse. It's an old saying, but you know, it's a very valid thing where the cart is actually pushing the horse around instead of the horse pulling the cart. Okay, and you're being controlled by their processes, not like, let's use Salesforce as a great example there. You're controlled by their process, and if you have some specific process or workflows, you can't easily set them up yourself, and that's the big thing.
That's very much the case with the FBAA. We are with Salesforce, although we're transitioning onto your new system, and I gotta admit, it's been a bit of a nightmare, to be honest with you, and extraordinarily expensive. And every time you sneeze, something breaks, and it's more costs, and just
but can we just confirm this? You're talking about Salesforce here. It sounds like you're talking about my system. No.
Your system. Well, we're not on your system yet. We're waiting to get on it. I can't wait to finish it off. So we're close to that. But
it is. Salesforce is now the new SAP, and if everyone knows about SAP, if you've ever had to get an SAP, so it's the big accounting system. It's like the top end, accounting system, and you're talking. You pay $1 million for the software, and then and then it will be another $2 or $3 million to configure it the way that you want to use it. SAP is what was used in Queensland Health and didn't pay all the nurses and all those type of things. So that's the scenario that is now happening with Salesforce, and a lot of people are getting stuck in that situation. It's a great product, but use it for what it is, not for trying to make it into something else. So,
well, thank God we haven't spent millions, but even in my head, we've probably spent way too much on Salesforce over all these years. So I'll be happy to get out of it, let me assure you. So tell me more, let's talk about the cloud. Tell me a little bit around what online solutions and online tools, how they benefit a business and how they can be used a bit within a person's business.
Okay, well, the obvious one is Zoom. Like, don't you wish you had bought shares in January last year of Zoom? It's now worth ridiculous amounts of money. But
Afterpay was the other one. I should have bought shares in it.
Exactly. So tools like Zoom. Now, So being a development company, we actually can work totally remote, and I can use a totally remote team if I wanted to. I could use a team that is overseas. I choose not to because I like to be part of the community and have a local development team, but it would be 5 times cheaper to use Ukraine resources or stuff like that. And one of the things that I did find is using Zoom. I think Zoom is one of those great products that everyone's jumped onto. Excuse me, I have to stop for a sec because I'm gonna have to cough. So Pete,
you do that. Well, Nigel's coughing. One of the things that we did in the FBAA is that we transitioned from everybody working in the office to, well, obviously in COVID, everybody had to work from home, but then we came back into a split system. And I can tell you, I'm a bit old school. I was dead set against people working from home. And then as through COVID and we came out the back end of it, I said, I'm dead set not going back to the office. So anyhow, we worked the split structure when we got back. So we had staff that, we worked 1 week in the office and 1 week from home. And we did that for, I guess, a couple of months. And then the staff turned around and asked me, well, look, what we would like to do is to work Monday and Friday from home and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in the office. And I said, well, that just sounds like a long weekend to me. So we cut a deal and said, well, look, so long as KPIs are met, so long as we continue to grow, I'm good with it. But if you don't, you lose the lot. So today, it has been extraordinarily successful. And we have, as Leah would be today, she's probably working from home by the looks of it. I am, although I've got to go get on an airplane soon. But we have this split arrangement. It works extremely well for a work-life balance. And I think that the way we've embraced technology, even though we got a bit of an overload last year, all that will rationalize out and balance out. So the ability for cloud solutions and improving systems so you can basically work from anywhere, I think is fantastic. And hopefully, Nigel, you've got control of the cough, mate. There's nothing worse, is there?
No, I knew I was gone. What I actually tried, this was an interesting thing that actually was the downside of being totally remote was, and maybe this is my old school part of it, but you don't pick up on some of the verbal cues that you would in that if you see people face to face. And I found, so we actually worked on, we go back to the office 1 day a week, and that was, I call it more of a social day. I could actually say the productivity is lower on those days than it is when people work remote. But it's a good thing because we're human, we're social animals. So I think it's still an important part of it. So
I couldn't agree more. That getting together, and we're social animals, but that meeting, getting together in the office, I think is crucial to get the balance right. Because otherwise, exactly. And it happens in many other areas, that the pendulum swings too far the other way and you lose that balance, which to me, in my philosophy I operate anyhow, you lose that harmonic in your life and then nothing seems to go right. So exactly. I think it's fantastic. Yeah.
So just quickly on the other side of it is IM, so like Slack or I forgot the Microsoft equivalent. Yeah, I think Teams, Microsoft Teams, okay. Those type of tools for async communication are really important so that you can send messages to a group. You might send it to a team that might be just related to one particular project. As you probably, I don't know if you know, Peter, but we're actually using Slack while we're doing this project. It's allowing your team to actually talk directly to my team so that you don't have to call every time. They can put what we call an async message in there, which might not get replied to straight away. It might not be important, but it's better that way than using all that time trying to call people all the time. So and then having your resources online, I think that's the other important thing. And most of us do that these days with our documents and other things. So those are probably the 3 key things.
So tell me, where is the future going? If we said, what does 10, 20 years from now look like? Where do you think all this goes? I mean, do we wind up getting rid of the human being out of the system, or is technology real the grunt worker as such as we go forward? What are your thoughts?
AI is amazing. Like I've got friends that write software that is used in drones that fly beside the high tension lines, and they can, as the drone goes around each insulator, and it can via AI on the spot go, yep, that one needs replacing. Yep, and then it goes to the next one, and it just does things like that. So instead of you got people trying to walk on these high tension lines, which is pretty crazy stuff anyway. This is doing that automatically. So AI in data, we wouldn't have had a COVID vaccination if it hadn't been for AI, because you're talking huge amounts of data, and they push this through like to basically say, here's the result we want, here's all this data, compare them, and then give us the thing. And that's what they're using AI type technologies against to do. So I actually saw one example where they're using DNA streams, and the amount of data is it's immense that we're talking about. So and a normal processing of that just doesn't work. So that's our future in that sense. The other thing I'd say is, if you've got if you want a future thing like car parks, I reckon they're going to don't invest in car parks in the city. You'd be hoping one day that you'd hope in the near future you'd have the ability that your car takes you into the city, you get out, and it goes out of the city somewhere and parks in a car park outside of the city and charges itself, and then come back and gets you when you want to leave work. Okay, maybe that's a thing. I don't know, but I'm just I'm putting silly things of like the whole city complex is going to change, and what happens in cities is going to change with the amount of people and who needs to go there and how you get there and get back. So
yeah, look, I agree with you on that. I think it'll be very interesting in the coming few decades as to what capital cities really look like
exactly
compared to where they are today.
Well, I took it.
Yeah. Mate, look, we're out of time. Fascinating chatting.
I'm sorry. No, I was going to go into another tangent, but we were out of time. So.
Yeah, we've got the end of our time for you, but we will continue this conversation another time because it's fascinating. So hopefully that was of interest to people watching and enjoyed understanding a little bit more of what's happening with technology and how you can consider using it otherwise. Nigel from Two Red Kites, mate, thank you so much. We'll look forward to catching up with you again soon, and appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks for this opportunity, and everyone have a great rest of your day. Stay safe.
And guys, just while I've got Peter and Nigel online still, guys, if anybody does have any questions today, please feel free to pop them down into the chat box and we can read them out live to Peter and Nigel. Alternatively, can send them through to the events team at head office on events@fbaa.com.au, and we'll be able to read them out. But for the time being, guys, it doesn't seem like there has been a great deal that has been sent through. Nigel, I've only got one question for you, though, on the security of obviously using cloud tech. Is it the most secure system out there that people can use?
Look, there's always, you have to be worried if you're on Google that maybe Google will use your data to work out other things. Now, you could imagine, what I could probably say is any tech that you have, I've always said a tech person controls the business. Don't think the CEO controls the business. If you've got a tech department, they control the business, okay? They have access to every document, everything in your whole system, okay? And they could look at anything, they could look at anyone's email, they can do all those things. So if they really wanted to, they could, okay? At least with when you've got it in the cloud, does someone really want to go look at your information? Maybe there is a Google, but they have lots of safeguards to prevent that. I actually have someone that writes software that actually does, that works with Zoom that will do the meetings, and he had to actually show his security protocols to show that no one internally could access any of the transcripts from any meeting and all the other processes from that. The other side of it is Google does actually have a feature that will allow a tech person to gain access to someone's email account, but it will notify and record that that's happened. Okay, so at least we've got some auditing there, and I think that's really important. Auditing is the most important thing. And I actually try to say to people, especially when we build systems for people, don't go too heavy. Security is a double-edged sword. It's a great thing, but it's a pain in the proverbial as well, okay? Because what happens if you have to get that order out, but you need to change it by 10, but the only person allowed to change that order is out at lunch or something else, okay? They're away that day. So it's much better having the concept of anyone can change it, but everything's recorded and audited and logged, okay? So if anyone comes back later and says, who changed this? They don't have to shout out in the room saying, hey, who changed this? It can be, Peter changed it. So, it's that type of concept. So security, I believe, is there. Use two-factor authentication if you can. It's really important. And don't do the Facebook, what was your favorite pet's name and all those type of things, which are trolling ways of trying to find details about you that they can use for your passwords. And don't use unauthenticated, unsecure wireless networks as well.
I think that's some really valuable advice that you've given to our members today that are on the call. So Nigel, again, as reiterating what Peter said, thank you very much for your time.
Okay, well, that was a great session. And as Leah was saying at the end of the recording, if you do have any questions, then please email them through either to head office or to Mark or myself, and we'll get answers to those for you and publish them later on. So we're a bit over time at the moment. So thankfully, that is the last session for today. So that's bringing us to a close. A couple of things to remind you about before we go. Mark and myself and the state councillors, Kim Russell and Athena Liss, are available for any questions or any assistance that you might need. We're happy to help out with that. So please get in touch with us either through the contact details on the website, or for those of you that know us personally, then you can reach out directly. So this is the final few items to cover off. I'd like again to thank the national sponsors. Their time and support is really valuable to us, and we can only do our thing as an association because of their support. They provide us with so much that we're grateful for. Secondly, you'll receive the email with the code for the 1.5 CPD points for today's session. Please also fill out the short survey, and we'll take on board any feedback that you've got. On the 15th of July is the next Q&A with Whitey session. So please register for that with the email invitations that you've got. The session will include Matt Rogers from RBG Lawyers around critical issues within the industry and how they can help you. So register please either on the website or in the email invitation that you'll receive. There's also the 2 coffee meetings that I mentioned yesterday, which are coming up here in South Australia, which are on the 18th of August and the 23rd of September. So please keep those in mind, and they'll be face-to-face coffee meetings, COVID willing, let's say. The recordings of the webinars and this and other webinars are available on the YouTube channel. So go to our YouTube channel for all those recordings, and you can claim CPD points for having watched them as well. So that wraps it up, and thank you everybody, and have a great day.